Welcome back, everyone, to another character guide, kind of. So this is the first in a series of videos I'm going to be doing because someone made a recommendation. I thought it was a good idea. On my best design character video that I did quite a while ago, there's a new comment on it asking me to kind of do a video like that for every character. Not so much in the, is everyone the best, but kind of doing a deep dive on their skill trees and kind of talking about gear synergies and that. I thought it was a pretty good idea and something I might enjoy doing, so I'm doing that. And as you can see, I have Zero with me here because Zero is kind of my runner-up to that, so I thought he'd be a good one to do next. I know people might be expecting Maya instead of Zero if they knew I was doing this and were expecting it, but I figured I'd talk plenty about Maya. So, yeah, let's dig into Zero over by the Marshal here. Good as place as any, right? So, Zero is the sniper melee character, but he's much more diverse than that. You can play Zero many styles. And I'm going to try to go over some here and explain what's good and what's bad with him because of that. So, starting with his action skill, of course, Deception. Deception, you press your action skill to create a holograph decoy and vanish for a few seconds. The longer you are invisible, the more damage your next attack deals, but ending invisibility sooner results in shorter deception cooldown. So, when you look at these buffs, they are massive. Melee damage up to 650, gun damage up to 200, critical hit damage up to 250. Now, when you stack gun damage and critical hit damage both, it does pretty insane damage. If you guys go back and watch my Dirtchnai, the critical hit guy video, which I will link in the annotation, it kind of explains why stacking those up does so much damage. But this here really defines Zero, as most action skills do. And a lot of people kind of miss the point, because so many people in this game just kind of like high fire rate stuff. They think Zero is just kind of like a DPS high fire rate character as well. But with this one, you get that for one shot coming out of Deception. So Zero is, by kind of definition of his action skill, which is a very short cooldown of 15 seconds, a burst damage character. Now, there are some caveats with this, especially when going into the sniping tree. He does have Rising Shot, and he does have Critical Ascension. So we will address that when we get there. But with Zero, he doesn't like your fast Vladoff pistols. Some people think the Infinity is great with him because of that. But when you use those guns, you can get synergy with certain skills, but you're really losing out on your action skill here because you're not getting much out of that 200 and 250 if you're just using a little low damage gun rather than using a high damage something like a sniper. I mean, even your fast fire rate snipers like Vladoff snipers have massive damage. Shotguns, Jacob's assault rifles really love this. So he likes those big kind of burst damage hits when he comes out of here, not your little fast DPS hits. I guess it kind of makes sense to start with his middle tree because his other ones are so opposite. This is the one that really ties him all together. So I guess it makes sense to lead off with this. So Fast Hands is a fantastic skill. Who doesn't like reload speed and swap speed? And Zero is, I don't know, Axton might beat him up, but he's one of the kings of reload speed. He can get crazy fast reload speed. Right here, 25% to start, but it's tier 1, and the swap speed really helps, especially with the slagging of OP8 and UVHM. I guess UVHM, not so much OP8, just part of that. Counter-Strike is really awesome for melee builds, but it's only on melee, not gun damage. So that's just a big number there. Now, I believe that is additive on the melee formula, if I'm not mistaken. But correct me if I'm wrong. I don't do melee too much, so I'm not an expert with a melee formula. But 250% damage on additive is a big deal, even if you can only get it every now and then. On the next tier, Fearless. So If you have the points left over in your build, Fearless is a great skill because when your shield breaks, you do get bonus damage and fire rate, which is great. But and it's active usually when you're in fight for your life, because if you're dead, your shield should be down. A lot of people try to do builds around this, and it's a trap. Don't try to build around this, because Zer0 doesn't have the survivability to run around without a shield, or even the Rough Rider, and I'll cover that more. Ambush is great because this is a multiplicative damage skill, and everyone loves those. I mean, it's only 20%, but 20% multiplicative when you have all Zer0's critical hit buffs is a big deal. And when you're in Deception, I'm pretty sure you always have Ambush, which is, again, fantastic. Rising Shot, this is another great one of his. You pretty much always want this if you have a gun build. Each successful range or melee attack grants a stacking bonus for a short time, and this can stack up to 5 times. Faster weapons gain them faster, but slower ones retain them for longer, so it kind of balances. So with this 5 out of 5, if you get up to 5 stacks, that is 50% gun damage, and that's a really big deal. Yes, it's additive, but 50% additive gun damage is a big deal, especially when you have a crit-based character. Any gun damage is big. Come back to that. Unforeseen used to really suck and do no damage. It has now been buffed. There are people that have been trying an Unforeseen kind of build, because with Many Must Fall, every kill you put out a new decoy, and you can spam these. I don't know how viable that actually is. In early modes, it's pretty solid. In the late game, it didn't scale that well. But now that it's been buffed, if you got the extra points, it might not be too bad, depending on how you're building your character. But I think it's still kind of in the lower tier skills of his. Because there's also not guaranteed to be an enemy nearby it for it to hurt. So even if it does do good damage, you have that caveat. Deathmark is one of the greatest skills in the game. Now, not by itself. Without Death Blossom, it's not nearly as good. But with that, it is ridiculous. So, melee attacks mark the target for death. For a short duration, marked targets also take additional damage from all sources. So it is a debuff. That is a multiplicative debuff with Slag. So Slag is 300%, or 3 times, and this is 80%, or 1.8. But when they're applied separately, that really increases your damage output. And this multiplies all of your other skills because it is a debuff, so it is multiplicative with everything out there. And 80% is pretty big. So yes, you have to apply this before you hit it, but every kunai applies 80% now. So you can go and put kunai on kind of out on everything while you're in Deception, kill your one main target, and everything else is weaker. You know, also on bosses, it's a no-brainer and it's easy. So yeah, Deathmark is pretty fucking fantastic. Innervate. This is non-essential for, obviously, melee builds, but sometimes it's almost worth taking just for the health regen, because you don't get a lot. And yeah, he needs all the help for survival he can get sometime, but also that movement speed is always great, especially for melee builds. And while the gun damage is pretty tiny on here, with all the other stuff, it's pretty nice. So, really good skill that kind of ties in with both of his skills, and Zer0 loves movement speed, especially in Deception. I thought he just got a movement speed buff well in Deception, but I could be wrong there. Two Fang. Two Fang is awesome with certain builds, terrible with others. If you're going melee, it's utterly pointless. If you're going with snipers, a lot of times it can throw your aim off and waste ammo, and it messes with CA a little bit. That double shot doesn't always count. So usually sniper builds and melee builds don't take it, which is weird because he's a sniper and melee. But if you are going with a general gun build with Zer0, a shotgun build, a pistol build, an assault rifle build, Two Fang is a big fire rate boost. and it can stack with Shadow and the Seraphs to do absolutely crazy things that I'll show you guys in a bit. And then Death Blossom. Death Blossom is absolutely nuts. Not because of the thrown kunai, but the kunai proc Death Mark. Who cares about the kunai? The little damage they do can sometimes strip shields and stuff, so sometimes it's cool. Weaker enemies sometimes even die from it. Because Death Mark is applied, kunai does more damage. But it's mainly for the fact that they throw out Death Mark. You can't rely on them to slag, but just applying the Death Mark to enemies at a distance is pretty huge. So the combination of these two are really, like, these are kind of the glue of Zer0 if you're melee or range, because on melee it allows you to put those on before you engage them in melee instead of your first hit not being as strong. Your first hit can be strong. So yeah, very, very big deal. The absolute glue of Zer0. And that skill tree doesn't really have much bad skills. I mean, Unforeseen is the only really kind of quote-unquote bad skill, and that got buffed. Counter-Strike can be pointless depending on your build, as well as Two-Fang, but when they're right for your build, they're really good. So next, I'm going to save sniping for last. I'll go through the melee tree because it'll be a little quicker. I'm not that big into melee, but Killing Blow is absolutely stupid ridiculous because 500% and it can be boosted. Yeah, I mean, what more do you want? I'm pretty sure this one is additive as well, but who cares when it is 500%? If you're doing a melee, you probably have this at least 10 out of 5, if not more, which, yeah, 1,000%. That's 10 times. Iron Hand kind of blows. Now, if you're going full melee and you got the extra points, sometimes you toss it in here because it's another 15% melee damage, but when you have skills like Counter-Strike and Killing Blow, you don't notice that damage much. And unfortunately, if you're doing melee, you are going to be health gating like crazy, so the extra health doesn't always help you. So it can be a little counterintuitive. Grim is kind of in a weird place. This would be better placed in the Cunning Tree a little bit. It's a great skill for Zer0, it's just not a great skill for most melee Zeros. At least if you have Many Must Fall. So what this does is if you kill an enemy, it causes your shields to start to regenerate. And you also get cooldown. Now, Zer0 loves being able to go in Deception as fast as possible, so that's good for melee, but if you're doing Many Must Fall chains, you want your shield to stay down and not recharge right away. Now, if you don't have Many Must Fall yet, you're early in the game, it's pretty good for melee because, you know, you strip your shield, you hit an enemy for that big hit, but then you want your shield back so you're not easy to kill, and your cooldown's coming back faster, and yeah, it's all good. Now, for gun builds, this is great because this is Zer0's only shield regeneration skill. And for most gun builds, you had to go down and get, well, a lot of sniper builds, you would have to get Critical Ascension and Death Blossom, which until the second level cap did not make it easy to get Grim. But now that you could get Grim and Follow Through, it made those gun builds really good with that 72 cap. So Zer0 does not have many survival skills, and that makes this all the better. But it is a really good survival skill. Be Like Water, meh, it's kind of meh. And if you're doing a melee build, you'll often get it because a lot of times you're shooting them with a Grog or Ruby to slag them. But the boost isn't that big, but, you know, just adding up more melee damages eventually add up. So not his most fantastic one, but a lot of times they grab it anyways because, again, you are shooting them. Follow Through. This is one of those kind of like cornerstone amazing skills. And when gun builds could get this, they rejoiced because it is so good. Killing an enemy increases your movement speed. Again, Zer0 Zero is a glass cannon, and a lot of his survival is based among his movement speed. So between this and, well, in Deception with Innervate, you can move really fast. But yeah, 40% movement speed is a nice buff. Again, 30% gun damage, and we have all these critical hit buffs that I'm going to be talking about shortly. That's a big deal. And then melee damage as well. 40% is not bad, again, for additive. Now with these, your additives are starting to add up to kind of matter. Next, Backstab. You deal additional damage with hitting enemies in the back. 40% is good. Once again, another 40. I think, isn't Backstab... Oh, man, I forgot. For some reason, I'm thinking Backstab was multiplicative. But I could be wrong there. I might be thinking of Ambush. Execute is amazing. Even for gun builds, this is really good. Because it increases your movement speed and Deception even more. Yeah, so if you need to cover that gap... Oh, there's no enemies. And I shot. That was good. I don't know what I'm doing. So if you go into Deception here, as this comes back... I don't think this will work without a target, though. Yeah, I need an enemy to... Is the target dummy count? No, I forgot that I need a target. It shows how much I actually play Zero. But let's say that guy was a target over there, and I wanted to close the gap because I'm a shotgun Zero and I want to be able to land all my pellets in his head. I could go into Deception, hit my melee, and I could zoom towards him. And if I know my range, I can do it where I don't quite get to him, but I close that gap so I can shoot him closer. A lot of gun players use this with Deception. And Execute, even when they're not doing melee. And also sometimes they'll actually execute the enemy to knock them back to get a good hit as well, which is another good option. So even in gun builds, this is a fantastic skill. And if you're doing a sniper build and you're down here and here, you can go 4 out of 5 follow through and still get a point in Execute. And often that 1 point is worth it. Resurgence. This you're probably going to want to have. Again, you're a glass cannon, you don't have much survival. If you go in pure melee, it's a good skill to get. 20% or up to 20%. It's kind of big for an initial hit there, and it helps you health gate faster. Like the Wind. This one's kind of a tough one. It's great for the melee because you are going to be moving. You're going to get that damage. It's going to be kind of wasted on the gun damage part of it. But I have seen melee builds skip this for other skills. And then there's Many Must Fall. Many Must Fall is, again, great capstone. This is what makes Zero great. He's got so many great... All of his game changers and capstones are utterly amazing. So Many Must Fall, if you kill someone while in melee, your Deception kind of reactivates. You deploy another decoy, you get more time to do it, and you can just keep going and going and going. Striker to Zidane did a great video of this in true Vault Hunter mode, and he just chained Pete's bar on like one Deception and killed everyone, never left Deception, because he just kept killing people. It was beautiful. It's harder to do that in the higher levels because enemies take more to kill them, but if you really know what you're doing with Zero, you can do some pretty awesome things with that. So again, the melee tree isn't quite as good as the center tree. It's got some more meh skills, but not really many. They all add up, and melee Zero is a monster, so the tree's really, really good. So on to Sniper Zero, or his sniping tree. So headshot, increased critical hit damage, hell yes, that's perfect. Optics, not so much. You increase your zoom with all gun types, and additionally your aim is not disrupted as much when taking damage. So the aim steadiness is cool. I like that because you do get recoil when you're doing that, and with Zero you want to hit your crits and ADS. But the extra zoom, It's not as important as a lot of his other ones. Precision is one of the dumbest sniper skills. Gearbox keeps doing this. They keep giving accuracy buffs to snipers. Aurelia has it, Zer0 has it, Thorn has it, and Battleborn. Snipers are so accurate in these games that you don't need more accuracy. Now, the cool thing about this, if you are doing a non-sniper build, it's really good for like shotguns or the Maggie, or well, mainly shotguns, really, to be honest, to increase their spreads. As you see, I've done that so many my pre-sequel builds with characters. Just get point blank with Jacob's shotguns and win. But for snipers in a sniper tree, it's kind of bad, and it's boosted by a lot of sniper comms, which makes it kind of extra bad. Killer is fantastic. Again, we were talking about reload speed with fast hands, getting more reload speed here, and 75%. It is a kill skill, but with Zer0 you are going to be killing fast and often, so that's not an issue. Critical hit damage, 50%. Now you're up to 70% critical hit already. That's a big boost. Next, we have one shot, one kill. So this is a really cool skill. The first shot out of a fully loaded magazine does increase damage to 60%, and this is boosted by some comms as well. That's a major gun damage boost. Some people fall into the trap of this with the Infinity, that I will talk a little bit more when I go into some gear. And that can be alright, but it's kind of a trap. But with Jacob's shotguns, which Zer0 loves, it's fantastic since most of them are 2 shots anyways, and he's got such fast reload. But with Zer0, because we have these reload buffs, you're going to want to be reloading pretty often with him. This is less good with like Vladov snipers, but on like Jacob snipers and Pimpernel and a lot of the other ones with shorter magazines, it is absolutely fantastic. And even if you expand the magazines, again, if you kill 2 enemies and you have time to reload before you can engage that third, you want to do that anyways. That's just good play, and Zer0's got the reload speed to do that. So next, Velocity. Velocity can be a trap as well. It can be a very great skill because increasing bullet speed means the bullet spread doesn't happen until later, because bullet spread is based on time in air, not distance in air. So if the bullets go faster, they go longer before they start to separate. So again, great for shotgun builds and making guns with spreads more accurate before they start to spread out. The critical hit and gun damage are both nice add-ons to this. But the bullet speed can be a trap with guns like the Pimpernel and Liuta, because it makes the splits more drastic on them, which you don't always want. So you have to be aware of that. But it's a very good skill. Bore is one of those incredible game breakers. Mainly because there's a lot of bosses with overlapping hitboxes. Hyperius with his bots, and you can kind of stack them all up. Saturn with his turrets. Bunker with his turrets and entire body is one overlapping miss. The warrior's chest plates you can bore through to a point. Now, a lot of people get confused with bore. They think bore is if you shoot something, everything blows up and dies. That's not what bore is. That's what like super bores are, you could call them, like what you see on Bunker and Hyperius. But on most enemies, and most times you hit it, the bullet goes through an enemy, and the next target, the bullet actually doesn't keep going, although it kind of says that. What actually happens is the bullet hits that enemy, and the game creates a new bullet. And then that new bullet gets 100% extra damage, so double damage. And then that bullet travels to that next enemy. And then if that gets another bore, that travels, creates a new bullet again, and that one gets double damage on top of the other one. So if the first bullet was 100 damage, the next one is 200, the next one is 400, the next one is 800, 1600, 3200, etc. You get the math. So the damage can go up really fast. Now, usually while mobbing, it's hard to line up more than 1 or 2 enemies into a bore. So you don't see it as much during that, but sometimes people will hear boar proc and like, why didn't boar happen? That thing's not dead. Just because you got a boar doesn't mean everything's going to die. Where boar breaks is when I mentioned those overlapping hitboxes like the turret on Saturn. What happens is, if they're overlapping, is every pixel, the game makes a new bullet. So even though the bullet doesn't travel that far, the damage increases incredibly fast. And now this is why your computers will, or consoles will really stutter and struggle to keep up, and sometimes they crash. Because when the game creates that many bullets that fast and those damage numbers get that big that fast, it puts a lot of strain on your processor or CPU or GPU. And that can crash a system and really cause massive frame drop or stuttering. Because the game is creating so many bullets, the bullet doesn't move through. It's even more so because it creates new bullets. Something like a Pimpernel, when it creates a new bullet, that means they can resplit. So that bullet travels through a pixel, splits the 6 extra pellets on a Pimpernel, and then it travels another pixel and does it again and again and again and again, and boom, your computer blows the fuck up. The Twister can also do this because it has what we call pseudo-bore, which is relabeled in the pre-sequel to penetration. So what that has, guns with penetration, those bullets do keep moving, but without the additional damage. So when you have one of those guns, so let's just take one Twister pellet. And the Twister is extra special because the pellets move slow and rotate. So a pellet on the Twister can actually hit an enemy multiple times because of its bullet speed. So with that, each time it hits, it can create a new pellet, but then the pellet keeps going. So let's say the pellet you shoot from a Twister hits twice. It's going to create 2 new pellets from Boar, and then it's going to keep going. So you will have 1 pellet that keeps moving at original damage, and 2 other pellets that are moving at 100 extra damage. I'm not sure if the other one gets the 200% because it hit twice. That's insanely impossible to confirm. But instead of 1 pellet going through, now you have 3. And then if those 3 pellets go and they each hit the next enemy twice because they're going so slow, each of them creates 2 more pellets, and they all 3 keep going. So you have 3 more pellets plus another 6. So now 1 pellet has turned into 9 pellets. Now you can see how quickly this can expand. So that next one, if it goes through another hitbox on something like the bunker, those 9 pellets... Did I say 9? Yeah, that would be 9. Can then turn into 9 plus 18 for 27 pellets. Now, when you do this with a Twister, it has 18 pellets to start with, and you start doing that math. Holy fuck, no wonder your computer breaks when you do that. So that's why Boar on the overlapping hitboxes is different than like just doing it regularly, kind of how it's probably intended. I hope that helps people understand the difference between like your crazy super Boars of Hyperius and just like regular Boar when you're shooting normal enemies. Kill confirmed is a trap for the most part. And I'm going to get back to why. So I'm going to skip by that. At 1 with the gun is amazing because hip shot accuracy allows you to, hit crits more accurately without always ADSing, which is damn cool. More reload speed. Now with all of these, your reload speed is stupid crazy fast. And your magazine size went up 5, which is great for your DPS. Even with 1 shot, 1 kill, like you're not always going to have that opportunity to do that. And then on bosses, you want to keep going, so this is good. It also works well because of Rising Shot. Rising Shot and 1 shot, 1 kill kind of counteract each other. So, which one do you want to go after? But together on that first shot, ooh. Now, Critical Ascension, this is what really defines him as a sniper. And I'm actually going to go down to the test dummy now. So, Critical Ascension, when you hit a crit, you get a stack of CA, and for every one of those stacks, you get additional critical hit and gun damage. So again, refer to my Dirch the Science Guy, and actually maybe I'll put up some math in the background right here to kind of show you how those add up quickly. But CA here, so 6% critical hit damage and 5% sniper rifle damage per stack. So I'm just going to hit him once with this. 3626. I'm going to let all these stacks go away. And now you see that 9851 in the back. Shoot through another mag. 22 million. 23 million. So you can see how fast this adds up from what originally it was doing. 42 million. Now when you're mobbing, you can't just get stacks like this. Was that a 65 million there? 66 million, I think. 74 million. And I'm out of ammo. But that's a big difference. So with CA, to maintain stacks of CA, now once you go to a menu or buy anything, they all go away, and if you switch to a non-sniper, they go away. So to maintain CA, you need to be all snipers, but you need to be able to shoot fast and accurate. And you want to hit what you're hitting at. So this is why Zer0 hates bolt action snipers. They're too slow to maintain CA. CA isn't like Rising Shot, where the duration of your stacks are based on the speed of the gun. The stack duration is just stack duration. So Zer0 loves fire rate on his snipers for that reason. Now, it doesn't mean he doesn't like Jacob snipers, because Muckamucks have fire rates of, I think, like 3.1. Diabs, which are Jacob snipers with Vladoff barrels, have a fire rate up in the 4s. And you got to pull the trigger for each one, but if you're doing that, you're probably aiming better and hitting better. So Zer0 likes fast fire rate snipers, and it makes it hard to beat Vladoff snipers. Because Vladoff snipers, as you saw, is very easy to keep them on target. And this is with a Vladoff stock, in case you guys are wondering. Really easy to keep them on target. They punch pretty hard. You know, the Liuda especially that I have here, because the bullet split does crazy things. Now, you know, he loves the Pimpernel because the Pimpernel is so good with Bore, but the Pimp isn't that great with CA. And you can get CA with the Pimp, but not nearly like you can with a Liuda. So, you know, those are his skill trees. I guess next I'm going to talk about gear. Now, I focused a lot on melee and snipers, but Zer0 can do a lot of other good things that I started off talking about with Deception and his burst damage. So I should probably sort this by weapons. I guess I'll just go in order that they show up here. So Zer0 loves his Becca. He loves this for a few reasons. Because if I go here and I stack I'm actually going to wait to do that. I'm going to take this off for you guys. I'm not going to do this for every gun, but some of them I am. So here is the Becca. Now I am going to fire this. That was my warm-up. Alright, so that's my kind of Becca speed. Now, what I'm going to do is put on the Shadow and go into Two Fang. And I'm going to go a little further here and put on a class mode, that mod that buffs Two Fang. I think I have one. Didn't that do it? Alright, there we go. Did you notice the difference there? Now, I know I was saying Zer0 likes burst, not DPS, but the Becca is a burst damage weapon that you can happen to fire at an insanely stupid fire rate, And anything that gets in the way of this is fucking dead. Because that's ridiculously nuts. I'm going to go down and hit the dummy with it. I'm not going to go and do this for every gun, but this is one of those things that's so ridiculous it's worth looking at. Because Zer0 is really good with this. Now, this applies to all Jacob's assault rifles, just the Becca is, you know, kind of special among them. I mean, fuck, look at that. That's a lot of freaking damage. Now, going off my mouse. Yeah, even on the controller, it is stupid fast. So, that's what I was kind of talking about gun builds with Two Fang. You know, he loves his Becca. The Becca is one of his best guns. He makes almost the best use out of anyone, because the Becca also has the penetration, or pseudo board like I was talking about. And it's got 4 shots per pellet, so... But then you go to your Jacob's guns, and I'm just hitting the trigger once. And so far, 3 out of 3 times, it's procced 2 shots. Because these 2 stacked together pretty much do that every shot. And do really simple things. And your damage with the Jacob shotgun is utterly insane. Now, you're never going to get more than 2 rising shot stacks, really, because its fire rate is so high they go away fast, but yeah. When you add 1 shot, 1 kill into that, your damage goes off the fucking charts. Actually, I should do that to get it more accurate. Now, yeah, you see those numbers had a spike to it. Especially that first shot, which is all on target. You know, these are pretty big damage numbers, considering he's not even slag out there. So yeah, this is, you know, the power of Two Fang on gun builds. And Jacobs, all non-sniper Jacobs have a Type B critical hit. Now again, I've referred to that Dirchnai, the critical hit guy video that I posted earlier. Seriously, if you don't understand Type A, B, and C, you should go check that out. Because the Type Bs multiply the Types A's, making all of his crit boost that much bigger. So I kind of went out of order there. But, you know, he also loves the Maggie for those same reasons. He can increase the accuracy of the spread. He can shoot it stupid fast, so 10 bullets. That's a lot of lead you're pumping out. And who doesn't like that? And you can increase the speed of it, but also you have a big Type B. The pistols have 25% Type B, where shotguns and assault rifles have 15% Type B. So he really loves his Mag, because it's got a good burst damage, but you also have that fast DPS with Two Fang, and you have all the critical hit boosts. So Zer0 loves Jacob's weaponry. Other than bolt-action snipers. The Herald is just the Herald because it's the Herald. It's just good. No need to really talk about that. So the Infinity. I guess we are going to talk about this one. Actually, I do have 1 shot, 1 kill. So, yes, with 1 shot, 1 kill, Zer0 can really crank up the Infinity. You know, it's the infamous Forever Alone build that Mac did. Ironically, when OP8 came out, people couldn't really run that build because they just kept dying. And it's not because the Infinity doesn't work with Zer0, it's because that was a shitty-ass build. So the other trap with it that people fall into is they go, oh, Fearless, so if I take off and do a Rough Rider shield, I can get really good fire rates. And then you maybe do a Sheriff's badge. I thought I had it on here. Then you do something that boosts 1 shot, 1 kill, which I should have here. somewhere. I thought I had one that boosted that plus 6. Maybe not. Where is it? Weird. I swear I had that. One shot, one kill. Come on, game. Where are you? Now this gives it plus 5. So with this, you can pull out a stupid amount of bullets. And with his accuracy buffs, if you need to go there, it doesn't get too crazy. And the gun is going fast as fuck. And you never have to reload, and you can just keep spraying damage like this. And when one shot, one kill is always on, and you can throw out kunai, and you are pretty much going to have rising shot at 5 all the time. This does do work. The problem is you are going to die to a swift breeze, because you don't have any health regen on Zer0 really, and if you get hit, you're dead. So you can't do the Rough Rider with this. You will die. That is an absolute trap. So don't do that. Now you can see I don't really see a difference in fire rate here. It's still stupidly fast. So if you are going to do this build, don't use the B shield. And that was, I think, the problem with Mac's version of it. Is Zer0 is a glass cannon. Now if you go full glass cannon on him with a B shield and an infinity, sorry about that, I had a massive sneeze there. If you go full glass cannon with a B shield and an infinity, you're just gonna die. You need some survival. So wear like an antagonist if you're gonna do this, or a blockade, because you should be getting enough damage out of just putting out this amount of bullets if you really want to do this, where you don't need, I forgot I don't have deception or kunai on, but where you don't need the B shield. So if you are going to do this build because you like your infinity and you want to use it with Zer0 because one shot, one kill, and one shot, understandable. It is a synergy. But balance out the rest of your stuff. And don't use the B. Or magic missiles. Dear God, don't use fucking magic missiles. I think I've already talked about the Liudas, which he loves. Longbow's just a cool sniper. His shotguns. So, Gwen's Head is another pistol you guys might not think of. This has a big, I think it's a 32.5% Type B, one of the biggest in the game. And with that burst fire, you're pretty much getting up to rising shot at the end of each one. Because they have 7 bullets. And then you're going to start over on each one. So you're going to start off strong if you reload, because this thing's got a quick reload. So you start off with one shot, one kill. You end up the last 2 with rising shot. And it's a pretty solid gun for him. With the burst fire, it's easy to keep it on crit. And with all Zer0 stuff stacked up, you're going to get a good amount of damage out of this thing. So it might not be the best gun in the world, but it's kind of a little hidden gem for Zer0s. I didn't grab all of his best stuff. I just was kind of taking some samples. Now, if you do want to run the Rough Rider, crazy fire rate, shield down, the only way to really pull that off is probably with the kitten. Because Zer0 can do stupid things with the kitten. Since he can increase its accuracy. Oh, I should have gone with Swift, not Ferocious to get that fire rate. But put on this. And kind of like the Infinity, you can put out a ridiculous amount of bullets. Do I have all matching parts? That felt slow in the reload. But you can do a lot of damage with the kitten as Zer0, and this would be one thing that could possibly keep you healthy enough. Wait, I don't have a... Yeah, I do have a Rough Rider there. So if there's going to be a way to do it, it would be that. Yeah, probably not that, but there's probably a perfect class mod for it somewhere. Ooh, just really increase the accuracy. Look at that. So that's a gun that's got some creativity you can do with it. Manilow Moral Fiber did a really interesting kitten build with Zer0. I'm sure you can look up. It wasn't with a Rough Rider, I don't believe. But yeah, he was killing things with it. Again, I'm not going to bring all the guns into here, but some. You have his typical melee setup, where you are going to want the rapier, the grog, probably a fight for your life weapon like the Herald or maybe a Norfleet, and then a slag secondary weapon other than the grog, which a lot of times the best one is the pimp. If you guys don't understand the slagging power of the pimp, so you have 64.8% to slag here with the pimp, as you just saw. Now, the pimp has 7 pellets to it. You have your main pellet, the pellet that goes up, and the 5 pellets that split. And each of those have splash damage on it. So that means you have 14 chances to apply slag with 1 shot. And then you get bore on top of that sometimes, so you get even more. And because those, as you can see, they're popping out, each one of those can go out and slag other enemies. So rather than just slagging this one enemy, you can slag in a whole area of enemies, making this by far the best slagging tool in the game. Better than the slag. Yes, I've covered this before. But for Zer0, you know, if you're doing a sniper build, you can, you know, keep all that on. Also, rising shot quickly. But your typical melee setup, you are going to have the rapier for your massive damage, the grog for slag and health regen, a fight for your life, the pimpernel, non-shock bone for a better cooldown. You don't want shock because that will make your grenade kill yourself. You'll want a chain lightning to strip your shield or maybe a stormfront, and then a hide of Terra. Oh, see, I didn't have any health or shield up there. I would have killed myself. That's not my grog. Where's my grog? There it is. Not too close. So anyways, yeah, you strip your shield. And you can see there, I didn't take a shock dot because the shield is grounded, and that's what you want to do. And also, if you want to hold the grog while you do that, because your chain lightning can go and hit other enemies, and therefore you heal so you don't go down in damage. So that's kind of your basic melee setup of gear. You know, this can change and this can sometimes change, but it's always these two and pretty much this. Well, not that class mod. Probably Legendary Ninja. Other gear for Zer0 here as I go down. Obviously the Pimpernel. I just kind of went over that slag one of how good it is, but, you know, the Pimpernel has the best bore synergy in the game, and it's a sniper, and Zer0 just does stupid things with it. Because it's easy to maintain rising shot. You know, you get 1 shot, 1 kill in that first one. You get all that bore, and it just does a ridiculously stupid amount of damage. Non-weapons here. So relics, Shadow of the Seros for your 2-fang builds. Obviously, I already kind of showed that. The Bone of the Ancients is like an 80%er for Zer0. Not just because the elemental bonus damage, which really helps crank his damage even further, because he's a glass cannon. His survival is based on, well, I said his movement speed earlier, but a big part of it is on him killing things before they can kill him. And then you slip into deception, you know, you got your movement speed, then you hit him and kill him, but so much of it is killing before he can be killed. Zer0 is a DPS race, essentially. So the elemental damage is nice, but being able to slip in deception faster is even bigger. And you want to cool down with Zer0. You know, as earlier in this video I was mentioning I don't play Zer0 a lot, and you guys probably only seen me put up a few videos of him. But I remember a while back I was doing some crazy peak runs with friends, and I was playing Zer0, just kind of doing a Becca Zer0, and I didn't have any healing on me at all, and I was the only one that kept surviving because I just went with a cooldown build where I had my Bone, I had Grim, and I had the Legendary Hunter. And I could just slip into Deception so often that I never had to worry about dying, even without... Often I was running out of transfusion grenades, because I was throwing them just to slag and help out my team, but I was able to survive just by massive cooldown. So the Bone he usually uses for the cooldown, but the fact that it's cooldown and damage, I mean, we all know why it's good, but Zer0 has a hard time getting out of that because he relies on cooldown so much. Where like Krieg, depending on your build, doesn't need any cooldown. Most Kriegs don't need any cooldown. Most Sales don't need cooldown. You know, Maya loves it. Accident loves it. Gage sometimes doesn't care. But Zer0 really, really loves it. Stockpiles for obviously reasons. If you're doing your CA stacking, you want more ammo. And sometimes people that are just learning Sniper Zer0 struggle with ammo. Sheriff's Badge for your pistol builds, because Zer0 can definitely do those. He's got comms to back it up. Deputy build, if you're going to be doing a shotgun build, maybe you don't want to do the Shadow of the Seraphs, you want to do this, because his reload speed, when you do this and stack all of his other skills, can get just absolutely stupid. So that's a couple of the relics. Did I miss anything? I don't even mean to have this one in there. Class mods. First I'll do shields. Really, most of the time you've got either your antagonist or blockade. Which one's better? I don't know. It depends on you, which one you prefer. They're about equal, all things considered. Yes, you probably want to be in there for certain boss things. You know, if you're going to fight Terra with Zer0, you're just going to want to put a B shield or Pete just to kill him faster. The Rough Rider I kind of hit on here to say don't do it. And then obviously your melee shields. People are going to say Love Thumper, but when you get up to like OP8 and stuff, the Love Thumper just means you're running around only with health all that time, and it does less damage than a Grounded Hide. So just, if you're going to go melee Zer0, just learn how to play melee Zer0 and don't rely on the Love Thumper like a scrub. And, you know, that's kind of the shields he likes. You can use other stuff. And this isn't the only gear, especially with the guns. There's so many guns he can be good with. I was just kind of bringing a small sample. Your grenades, if you're a gun Zer0, you probably want slag transfusions. If you are a melee Zer0, you probably want chain lightning or storm fronts. There is a cool synergy with the fastball with Zer0, because, as I throw that there, the cool thing about it is throwing grenades does not take you out of Deception. So you can kind of do a gun many must fall thing by just chucking a bunch of fastballs while you're in Deception. I've seen plenty of people do that, and it's a pretty funny setup. It works pretty well. But, you know, you're going to have definitely have a slag gun out then. And then I've seen some people, and I don't recommend everyone try this, but if you're doing a boar-based Zer0, a Quasar to group enemies up for a Pimpernel boar can be a very deadly tool. Coontail's build did this, and he relied, to make this work, Legendary Hunter, as I have on here, which gives you some of your health back, and then between that and Innervate, that was really his health regen, is just those two. So he relied on just constantly going into Deception to get his health back, and then grouping enemies up with a Quasar and boring the shit out of them. And that was pretty much the build. I mean, there's a lot, obviously, skills based towards it, but that was kind of that gear loadout. And it was really cool to watch that in action, just grouping enemies up and just blowing them all up with Boar and the Pimpernel. So, lastly, then, class mods. Now, I already covered the last class mods in my video, the good, the bad, and the ugly for Zer0's class mods, so I'm not going to go over those again. I'm going to go over his non-legendaries. So, the Lethal Ninja is, you see, Killing Blow, Backstab, and Resurgence. 3 good melee skills. Resurgence actually boosted his really nice form. I should probably I'm not going to respec for all these. That will just make this take too long. But with this, you get quite a bit of your health back, which, again, is really nice for melee Zer0. Killing Blow and Backstab are two really good skills, especially, Killing Blow. Some people would prefer a blue one of this and maybe not get Resurgence and get this a little bit bigger. And then your passives on it are obviously good. Now, sadly though, we've got a legendary ninja now. So there's not really much reason to use a regular ninja unless you are not level 62. But at endgame, it doesn't have much play. The professional is a really good just generic gun comm. If you're doing your shotgun builds or pistol builds or whatever. Reload speed, again, great. He loves that. Shield capacity, he is squishy, so that is always welcome. Killer, as we covered, is a great skill with both reload and critical hit damage. Two Fang boosted will do just stupid things, as you saw earlier with the Becca and the shotgun. And Ambush is a huge multiplicative damage skill. The reason I had this one in purple with 5 and Killer instead of Ambush is because Killer is going to be pretty much always on. You're always going to have your kill skills going for the most part, where Ambush will only temporarily be on. But you go with either one if you disagree. I'm not saying that's the only way to do it. Infiltrator, I don't really like this comm at all. I mean, fire rate, cool, but fire rate and melee damage, like, what are you trying to do? Iron Hand is one of his weaker melee skills. Be Like Water is one of his weaker melee skills, and Unforeseen isn't that powerful. So the skill combination on this one, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to be a gun comm? Are you trying to be a melee comm? I don't know. Just not that great. And it's nice to throw a little buff like fire rate if you are going to do like a melee hybrid, but why Be Like Water? Well, I guess Be Like Water does make sense, because that's your shooting and melee. They buff each other. But, I guess I get what they're trying to do. So maybe his Iron Hand needed to be switched to something better. Again, maybe like an Ambush, maybe Grim would have been bad. I don't know. Anything else? Killing Blow, Counter Strike, Backstab, Like the Wind maybe, because that boosts both of them. But as it is, just people aren't using this for a reason. The killer, there is now a legendary killer, as you can see here. Killer, Fearless, and Ambush. Killer, that one doesn't have Fearless anymore, which makes it even better. So you have team critical hit damage, which is fantastic for a team comm. Again, Fearless is kind of a trap. I don't see a reason to boost it, but I guess the cool thing is you can throw 1 point in there and get, 6 out of 5. Ambush boosted is fantastic, and Killer boosted is once again fantastic. So still a really good comm. You could get it in blue and skip Fearless, but actually 1 point give you 5, not 6. I apologize for that. But really, if you're past 62, you're using the legendary if you have it. Spy is the better comm if you want to do an Unforeseen build, which I think people have been trying. Like I said, I don't know if it's viable. But with this one, you are, again, boosting Ambush and Unforeseen, which is great. And then you have Velocity. You could maybe even skip Velocity on this depending on your guns and go a 6-5 if you want to do an Unforeseen build. The passive boosts are cooldown, so that's great, especially if you want to do an Unforeseen kind of setup. That works pretty well. So I did Professional. Stalker. I did this one in blue. God, I'm forgetting that purple skill. It wasn't a very good one, in my opinion. So Rising Shot and Follow Through are both really good for pistols. You should be able to stack those pretty well. Keep Follow Through open by skills. Most pistols are fast enough to keep your Rising Shot up. And then, you're increasing your pistol fire rate, mag size, shield recharge rate. It's kind of weird to be thrown in there, but again, anytime Zer0 gets any survival help, it's a good thing. So if you want to do a pistol build, this is a pretty damn good comm. Combine that with a sheriff's badge and Two Fang, and yeah, he can get a lot of work done with pistols. What else do we have here? What have I not covered? The Survivor. This is kind of a bit of a weak one too. Max health is a trap with Zer0 because, again, he doesn't have a lot of health regen. So stacking max health with him often makes it just harder to get past health gate. The health regen per second on these ones are never really enough to really help out. More than maybe against some dots, but I don't think this is strong enough to really save you from dot damage. Maybe this combined with Grim would be, but it's not really worth going into this comm. Ambush and Rising Shot, two really good skills. The third one was kind of crap, that's why I went with blue, but not really good enough to justify using this over other comms that would have better passives. And I think you can get Ambush and Rising Shot off of other ones. Alright, so Sniper. I did this because the third skill was... Oh, that's what I did wrong. That was supposed to be one shot, one kill plus 6, and not precision on it. So, this, again, there is a legendary version. And precision on these is dumb, fucking dumb. A, you don't need precision in a sniper build. B, you don't need it boosted. The extra gun damage or critical hit damage stacking is fantastic. Minus the shield capacity kind of sucks, but those boosts are pretty big, so you need a balance. Typically with this, I would have one shot, one kill and headshot. But like all the other ones, if you are past level 72, you're just going to go with a legendary and... yeah, get all of those skills and be way better. And then probably not even spec into precision, because fuck that skill on snipers. God damn it, Gearbox. Will you learn that lesson, please? Wait, hold on. I'm a Gearbox apologist. I cannot criticize them for anything. I get told that. Yeah, so those are his comms. Oh, the rogues. Yeah, so the rogues are really cool, too, because you can do Two Fang and Velocity... and then, all the different boosts you can get from the rogue comms. So those are insanely good for Zer0. Critical hit and fire rate, hell yes, hell yes. This one here is a great one if you want to do that shotgun build. And shotgun Zer0 is a real thing. I know some people like Gathalion said you can no longer do those in UVHM, but people that say that are just wrong, or they suck at the game, because Zer0 can absolutely do that. Now this, I would actually just go with the Shadow of the Ceres over this, just to get your crazy double shot like every time. Am I not spec'ing the Two Fang? I am. Why did I not get the double shot? Well, I guess it's RNG. You're not going to get it every time. There's a chance. You're going to get it most of the time. And it's awesome. Because this just puts out a dumb amount of damage, and, when you land these on crits, holy fuck, that's a lot of damage. So that's my Zer0 deep dive skill and gear review. Again, I didn't go over every piece of gear. I kind of tried to go over some basics. For guns, I skipped over a lot because there are way too many guns in this game. If you want a better idea on the guns, the Zer0 Top Gear Guide is a good place to go. Or Manilow Moral Fiber did his Does It Suck series, where he went through a ton of guns on Zer0. I think he did some of the Accident and some of the Maya, but the majority of them he did it with Zer0. And that's another good place to kind of look at gun variation with Zer0 and what he can do. So yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. I am going to continue on and do this with every character in Borderlands 2 and the pre-sequel, skipping Jack, because I already pretty much did it with Jack. I don't know if I can do it with Borderlands 1 yet. Probably not, because I don't know. Probably not. I just don't really want to do it, to be honest. I don't know a schedule on these, but I'll kind of fit these in between all the other things I am doing. So once again, as always, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it, and I will see you all later. Bye.